Hello everyone, a very healthy and warm welcome to all of you on our channel. Before we start with our today's video, let me tell you that I have already uploaded a video on the concept of village Palampur. If you haven't watched it, link is given in the description below. Go through it so that you have a basic and clear understanding of this video. So let's before we begin with our chapter, let's talk about its overview. So the purpose or the aim of this chapter is to introduce some basic concepts relating to the term production, and this we have achieved with the help of a story of an imaginary village named Palampur. So now let's begin with our today's topic, that is of organization of production. So as we what do you mean by the term production? So it is obviously a very basic and common term which is used in everyday life. Then also let us discuss it. The action of making or manufacturing goods from components or raw materials is defined as the production. So as we all know that every activity has an aim before it. So the aim of production is to produce the goods and services we want, the goods and services which the customers want. It is the aim of production. So now what is the basic requirements which we need during production? These requirements or factors needed for production are categorized into 4 types. What are these? Let's have a look. So first factor is land and other natural resources. Other natural resources includes water, forest, minerals, and many other things which are common production requires. And now why land is considered as the first factor? Because it is obvious that if we want to produce anything, then a base is required, the base on which our buildings will stand, and that foundation starts with the common factor, with the first factor, that is land, and added to it are the other natural resources like water, forest, and minerals. So the second factor of production is our labor, because it is obvious that we have established the foundation of our company, of our manufacturing unit to produce some goods. Now who will do the work? We have planned a infrastructure of our production. Now who will carry out that into real work? So it is the second factor, that is labor. Now labor is further categorized into 2 parts, that is educated laborers, and the second one are uneducated laborers. Now who are these? So educated persons are those people who in a company manage various units such as marketing, financing, purchasing, and many other sections which comprise a company into a big manufacturing unit. So these are highly educated people who do the necessary tasks. And now second is our uneducated laborers. Who are these persons? These laborers are those who perform their task on the commands of the educated laborers. Educated laborers or the high post officials command the uneducated or low post laborers to do the manual work required to complete the basic production in a manufacturing unit or company. Now let's come on to the third factor, that is the physical capital. Sorry, that is the physical capital. Now what does this term means? It Physical capital is the variety of inputs required during the production. So till now we have land to manufacture things, we have labor to carry out that infrastructure, but with the help of what we will produce things. So these are the physical capital, these are the variety of inputs which are named as physical capital. Now it is also further categorized into two types. What are these? Let's know about it. First is the fixed capital and second is the working capital. Let's discuss both of these one by one. So what does this fixed capital mean? So, fixed capital is the tools, it is the tools, machines or buildings which we require to lay a basic foundation of our production. These these are the inputs which do not vanish over a particular period of time. They are sustained for a longer period as compared to that of a working capital. They can be used in production over many and many years, and that's why they are called fixed capital. Now what is included what is included in the working capital? So working capital, as the name indicates, it includes the raw materials and the money which are required to change these tools, machines and buildings into the finished goods. And unlike fixed capital, these are used up in the production. Means like we have already discussed, tools, machines and buildings retain over a long period of time, but unlike to this, money and the raw materials are used up in producing anything. Let's take an example of production. Now the fourth and the most important factor of the production is human capital. Is human capital. So what is it? It is the knowledge or enterprise which enterpriser use to put together land, labor and physical capital to produce an output that he can use by him, for himself, for ourselves, or he sell it in the market as a surplus to gain profits. So the knowledge or enterprise used by the entrepreneur or the manufacturer to convert all these three factors, that are land, labor and capital, into a finished product is known as human capital, or the fourth factor of production. Now let's have a quick summary of this concept. First factor is the land, which lays the foundation of any manufacturing, and the second is the labor who do the work, and third is our physical capital, which is further categorized into two types, fixed capital and working capital. By comprising both of these, only we are able to get a finished product. And the most important factor, that is human capital, which put all these three factors, land, labor and physical capital, to produce an output, to produce and finished goods, is the fourth factor, and all these factors together make a finished goods for our consumption. Let's enhance our knowledge about the first three factors of production through the story of imaginary village Palampur. So, in Palampur, farming is the main production activity. And not only in Palampur, if you look at any village in India, you will find people are engaging themselves in the agriculture as their basic production activity. And about 75% of the people who are working in Palampur are already engaged in farming. And now it is not necessary that who are doing farming, there could be only the landowners or the farmers. They can be the farmers as well as the farm laborers who get a daily wage to work on the fields of the big landowners. So before we head towards further, let's discuss about the measuring unit of land, that is hectare. Friends, the standard unit of measuring land is hectare. And now a question must be striking of your mind that now what is this hectare? So let me tell you, hectare is equal to 10,000 square meters. So if I said that I have a land of 1 hectare, that in meters I mean 10,000 square meters I am owning my land. However, we can find the people of Palampur and many other villages discussing the land area under local units such as Bigha, Kuntal, Kuntha, etc. So this was the basic analysis of the measuring unit of land. Now let's come back to our topic. So in Palampur or in any village, every farmer is willing to improve his economic condition. And how he can do this? By increasing his farm productivity. So let's understand this story with the help of an imaginary character named Hitesh. This farmer, the name of this farmer is Hitesh. His economic condition is also not so bad, not so good. It is at the medium level, but now he wants to increase his economic condition, and then decides to increase his farm productivity. But before he could head towards his plan, a basic constraint occurred in front of him. And this basic constraint occurs in front of every farmer which decides to increase his farm productivity, and that was land is fixed. Land is a natural resource. You can't increase it by any means. Till now, none technology has been successful in increasing the natural resource land. So land cannot be increased. Neither now the question arises: how can Hitesh increase his farm productivity? Now that Hitesh was very clear in his mind that land cannot be increased by any way. So he explores his mind and asks to himself that is there any way he can grow more crop from the same land? Because land can't be increased. So can he grow more crop from the same land? So the answer which his mind gave to him was yes. So how? Let's explore it. Hitesh and other farmers of the Palampur or any other villages uses two main ways to increase their farm production. And first multiple cropping, second using modern farming methods. So now what is multiple cropping? Multiple cropping can be defined as to grow more than one crop on a piece of land during the year. This is the definition of multiple cropping. And friends, let me tell you that it is the most common way of increasing production on a given piece of land. Now, how it is done? Let me tell you. So friends, let me tell you first, there are two types of crops. First are kharif crops. You must read this about this in your junior classes. and second one is our rabi crops. So in Palampur, what the farmers done under their plan of multiple cropping, the Kharif farmers used to grow jowar and bajra. They started growing jowar and bajra in the Kharif season. Kharif season means during rainy season or summer season. And then it is followed by the cultivation of potato between October and December. Now you see the pattern of growing. During Kharif season, jowar and bajra are sown, and after that potato are cultivated on the fields of the village of the farmers of Palampur. And after cultivating potato in the winter season or in the rabi season, the fields are sown with the crop named wheat. And sometimes some farmers they devote their land to the cultivation of sugarcane, and it is harvested once every year. Now sugarcane like jowar and bajra, which can be used for the own consumption, this sugarcane is in its raw form or as jaggery is sold as to the nearby town Shahapur to gain the profit out of the farming as to increase their economic condition. Now in this way the land is also not wasted. In Palampur all land is cultivated, no land is left idle. So with the help of this, land is also used, and a more additional feature of technology was also added in the farming of Palampur, that was irrigation by tube wells. Because in the ancient times people or farmers used to draw water using Persian wheels, but as the electricity came early to the Palampur and people were aware about the latest technologies, then they slowly started using tube well, and they found it as the best means of irrigating their land. So till now we have discussed the multiple cropping. Now what is modern farming methods? Let's move on to it. So before we introduce ourselves to the modern farming methods, it is important for you to be aware from the traditional farming methods. What were the older ones which were replaced by the newer or the modern farming methods? So till the mid of 1960s, the seeds which were used in cultivation were traditional ones. These were the traditional seeds. They needed less irrigation, and the farmers oftenly used cow dung and other natural manures as fertilizers. All these were readily available with the farmers, and they didn't have to invest any capital in buying all these. But the disadvantage was that all these old factors resulted in low yields. Low yields resulted in relatively low yields, as if we relate them to the yields produced by the modern farming methods. These were however relatively less. And now a question must be struck in your mind, that now what is that yield? So yield is measured as crop produced on a given piece of land during a single season. So if the yield is produced on a less scale, then how will the economic condition increase? So to overcome this, to tackle this problem, the scientists introduced the modern farming methods, which came into the green revolution. There was a revolution of farming methods. What was it? So the green revolution was introduced in the 1960, and this introduced our Indian farmer to the cultivation of wheat and rice using high yielding variety of seeds. HYV seeds, introduction of these HYV seeds was the main result of the Green Revolution. So, as the name indicates, HYV seeds, these seeds were able to produce much larger yields as compared to the traditional seeds. Now, these seeds, compared to the traditional ones, uh, require more irrigation. These seeds require more irrigation, and now as a result, the same piece of land would now produce far larger quantities of food grains that was possible earlier with the help of traditional seeds. Now, as we discussed earlier, the HYV seeds require more irrigation, more water they require. So the farmers introduced themselves to the tube well irrigation. This was a new technology, and it was also introduced with the help of only HYV seeds. And these seeds also require pesticides and chemical fertilizers to produce the best results. So these all were included in the Green Revolution. A revolution was occurred in the farming methods. New modern farming techniques were introduced in place of the traditional ones, and as a result, the farmers were able to produce much higher yield than possible earlier. So, the Green Revolution was introduced, modern farming techniques were introduced, but the first successful attempt to use all these was made by the states Punjab, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh. These were the first states to try out the modern farming method in India. The farmers of these areas introduced themselves to high HYV seeds, irrigation by tube wells. They also buy tractors and threshers to produce the best results, and they were awarded with the same also. The yield, this data is of Palampur village only. The yield of wheat grown from the traditional varieties was 1300 per kg hectare, and as they started using HYV seeds, the yield went up to 3200 kg per hectare. Now you can see that how much what a great rise was there in the numbers. So the farmers now had greater amounts of surplus wheat to sell in the market, earn profit, and improve their economic condition. Now everything was going smoothly. We were enjoying more profits, and the high HYV seeds made it all possible. But the now main question arises: will the land because see, the water which we use in tubewell irrigation is taken from the underground water, and because of the continuous and careless use of groundwater, the water table has started to lower down its level. Water table has reduced below the ground. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides has deteriorated soil fertility. Regular and continuous growth of crops on the same field has also affected the soil fertility to a larger extent. And now, as a result, the natural resources, land and water, underground water, has been greatly spoiled by the Green Revolution. Now take the example of Punjab. It was the first state, as we discussed earlier, to introduce Green Revolution in its area. So the consumption of chemical fertilizers in Punjab is the highest in the country, and The continuous use of chemical fertilizers has led to the degradation of soil health. So the continuous growth of crops, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, all these have deteriorated the natural resources of Punjab. So now the farmers of this land are not able to grow that much crops which were possible earlier with the limited use of resources, and as a result the Punjab farmers are now forced to use more and more chemical fertilizers and other inputs to achieve the same production levels. This means the cost of cultivation is rising very fast, because now the farmers have to buy more chemical fertilizers, more, they have to introduce more techniques in their farming, and now the cost is rising, the land is more degrading, the soil fertility is more degrading, underground water is lowering down at the faster rate, and the worst affected from it is Punjab. So now it has been taught to all of us since our junior classes that and water soil and water are the natural resources, environment resources. They are built up over many years, and it is very prominent for every human being to conserve both of these, because once they are destroyed, it is very difficult to restore them, because they are made up of billions and billions years of ago. So it is our duty, and we must take care of the environment to ensure future development of agriculture. Now we have discussed the cultivation on land, deterioration of land fertility. Now the question arises, how is land distributed among the farmers of Palampur? What is the land distribution of the farmers of Palampur? So let's study this topic too. So as we discussed earlier, that the residents of village Palampur is about 450 families, and about one third means 150 families of Palampur, most of them Dalits, are landless. They don't have any land for cultivation, and the remaining families means the 240 remaining families owned small plots of land less than 2 hectares in size. And now you yourself think that how much the 2 hectare land will give to a family for the basic subsistence. So cultivation of such smaller plots doesn't bring adequate income to the farmer's family. These are the small farmers of Palampur who are cultivating their land, but although they are not able to fulfill their basic needs. So see in the figure, this area is owned by small farmers, and the rest, these big plots of lands are owned by the, which are quite larger in size, are owned by the medium and large farmers, which are not more than 60, or about 60 families are there in Palampur who owned the land, who owned the big plots of land. They included the cultivation of more than 2 hectares of land, and the large farmers often and the large farmers of this village sometimes have land extending over 10 hectares. So yeah, now you can imagine how much great productivity is coming from their land. So there are 3 types of farmers in Palampur. First are small farmers who cultivate their land, but they didn't get adequate income to fulfill their to fulfill the basic needs of their families. Um, Second are medium and large farmers who have adequate income because of the increased productivity of their large lands. And third one is our landless farmers. Farmers we can't say them as farmers. These are the remaining 150 families of Palampur. They don't have any land for cultivation, they are landless, and from these 150 families only we have farm laborers. We are going to discuss it earlier. So this is the land distribution of Palampur. So let me make this concept more clear to you with the case study of a small farmer named Gobind. So this is the farmer named Gobind. He has 2.25 hectares of land, and that too is largely unirrigated. Means they are only dependent on rain for their irrigation. They don't have tube wells. Even they are not having Persian wheels to irrigate their land. They are totally dependent on the rain. And anyway, by any means, Gobind is able to cultivate its land with the help of his three sons. And then also, after cultivating their land also, they do not get adequate income to feed the stomachs of their family members, and as a result they and added to this, a little bit of extra income is comes to their home with the buffalo. Means they also perform dairy farming with the cultivation of crops. Now what happened, after some years Gobind passed away. After Gobind's death, this 2.25 hectares of land was distributed among his three sons, each getting 0.75 hectares in land in size. So now you can think of yourself that how much small land they were having, and that too was distributed into a very smaller units. And after 1960, the green revolution was introduced, and as a result, the three sons of Gobind also came to know about modern improved irrigation and modern farming methods. But this didn't lay a great impact on their economic condition. They were not able to make a living from their land. Even they were also doing dairy farming with the help of one buffalo, and but this was not enough to fulfill their family needs. As a result, they have to look for additional work during the part of year. So now you can say how misery the small farmers have to face, because they are having their land, they are doing hard work, but not getting that much of results which satisfy the hunger of the stomachs of their family members. So this is all for today. We have discussed the natural resource land, and the first and the foremost factor of production. We discussed about its availability, multiple cropping, green revolution, and modern farming methods. Now then we emphasized our attention towards the land sustainability. Then we talked about land distribution with the help of example of Gobind. So in the next video we are going to discuss the second organization, second factor of production. And if you like this video, press the like button. Don't forget to subscribe my channel, and do press the bell icon to get the latest video updates. Thank you for watching my video. And also one more important thing I want to tell all of you, that in the description the link of part 1 is also given, and the link of my Facebook page is also given. If you want to update yourself with more extra educative material, then you can follow me, and then you can follow me or like my page on the Facebook. Link is given in the description. Thank you for watching this video.